E is the midpoint of BC, AB is equal to Y, EB is equal to Z, and DA is equal to X. So they want us to express in terms of X, Y, and Z, CB, the vector CB. Now first, what does the question say? Well, the question says something that is vital. The question says that E is the midpoint of BC. So if we have this BC, this is BC, E right there is the midpoint, right? It's the midpoint. That means that this is the point in the middle, all right? That's the midpoint. Okay, so what does that mean, right? How does that help us? Well, that means that, okay, if E is the point in the middle, right? That means that, okay, if EB is Z, all right? Right? If EB is Z, that means that CE must be Z as well because they should be equal because C and E, and since E is the midpoint, right? So if E is the midpoint, that means that E and B, right, must be equal to CE, all right? So if we know that EB is Z, that means that CE is also Z because E is the midpoint, E is halfway. So that means that this half and this half must make up the whole. So if EB is Z, that means that CE must also be Z as well. All right, and that's why knowing that this is the midpoint is helpful because we know that if we know what is this, we know that it's Z, we know that this must also be the same thing because E is halfway, E is the middle, all right? E splits them into two equal halves, right? So what is CB, right? CB is equal to, well, CB is equal to, we go from C to E, all right? So CE, and then you go from E to B. Now what is CE? Well, CE is Z, right? And then what is EB? Well, EB is also Z. And so we have Z plus Z and Z plus E. And Z plus Z is 2Z. So CB is equal to 2Z. Next, we have DB. And what is DB? DB means that we start at D and we end at B. Okay. And so that means that we're going to go from D to A and then from A to B. Just like this says, D to A, then A to B. Now, what is D to A? Well, D to A is definitely X, right? D to A is definitely X. And then A to B, well, A to B is definitely Y. So D to A is X and A to B is Y. Again, D to A is X right there, and A to B is Y. That's why we have Y. So DB is equal to X plus Y. That's what DB is, X plus Y. Okay, next we have to figure out what is CD. CD, so that means that we're gonna start at C and end at D, all right? So how are we gonna get CD? Well, we're gonna go from C to B, and then from B to A, and then from A to D, all right? Or we just can go from C to B, like we have here. Then we're gonna go from B all the way to D, all right? So B all the way to D. Now we can write BD as negative DB. And that makes sense because all we're doing is switching the letters. So instead of writing BD, we write DB. Now, since we switched the letters, there's a penalty for switching the letters. You can't just switch the letters willy-nilly. Since we switched the letters, the penalty for switching the letters is we have to add a negative sign. And so instead of having BD, we have DB, but since we switched the letters, we have to put a negative sign so that these two would be equal. Now, what is DB? Well, we just figure out, right, that DB is X plus Y. And so we have CD is equal to CB plus negative DB. We know that a negative times a we know that a positive times a negative is equal to, well, before we actually go into all that positive and negative, the first thing that we do before that is we substitute. And so CB, what is CB? Well, CB is 2z. We saw that. So CB is 2z, and that makes sense because C to E is z, and that makes sense because C to E is z, and E to B is z. So z plus z is going to be 2z. So this is 2z plus, what is dB? We just saw what dB was. dB is x plus y. And so we have a negative x plus y. Okay, so next we're going to take this negative one and we're going to distribute it. All right, so what we have? We have negative 1 multiplied by x and negative 1 multiplied by y. And so what does that give us? Well, that gives us, right? That gives us negative 1 multiplied by x gives us negative x, and negative 1 multiplied by y gives us negative y. And so we have CD is equal to 2z plus negative x minus y. Okay, next, we remove the brackets. So we have that 2z minus x minus y. So CD is equal to 2z minus x minus y, and that's the answer to this question. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this question. I'll see you in the next video.